to another episode of Open for Discussion. I'm your host, C. Maurice Ball, and today we have a gentleman who is phenomenal at what he does. He is a certified relation and emotional intelligence coach. He is a health advocate and he works for NASA and he's out here doing big things and changing lives because that's what he do. But before we jump in and get him, hit the like and subscribe button. And then we're going to kick this intro and then we're going to come back and we're going to have our special guest. Let's go. Kick that intro. Well. We have the man himself in the building. This guy is an amazing guy. This is Mr. Derrick Jones, and he is the guy that you need to know. And I'm telling you how I met him. Backstory real quick. So we were on TikTok. We both have a mutual friend on TikTok, and they both are in the same arena in TikTok as far as what they do. They just do things differently. And so he pulled up on the panel. I pulled up on the panel. We start talking. We made a connection. And it was one of those things. I see him on his live on TikTok. I'm going to jump in, say what's up to him. And he always shouts me out every time I pull up in his live. And I truly appreciate that. And that's how we started this relationship. And I thought that just talking to him and seeing where he's at and what he's doing and how he's doing it is something that people need to hear and maybe get encouraged and inspired and want to do what he's doing or be able to break free and establish that. So without further ado, Mr. Derrick Jones. What's good, my man?
Everything's good. I hope everything's well with you.
Man, everything is good, man. Everything is good. It's Friday. It's raining, a little cold up in this piece, but it's all good. It's
Yes,
all
sir.
good. So, man, like, where you at? What part of the country are you in?
So I'm in Maryland, close to DC. So they call it the DMV. So I grew up in that general area. I probably maybe 10 minutes outside of DC. I grew up, but now I'm like about maybe like 45 minutes. You know when you move further away to get the cheaper house, but now you got to commute to
Right.
get to the city.
Right. So you grew up in the DMV.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. Born and
Okay.
raised.
Cool. So at what point, like, what was that like growing up in the DMV? I know I got some guys that grew up in the DMV. They all play basketball, and
Right.
Are you a hooper?
I am not a hooper. I'm 6 foot, but I'm not a hooper. I'm like the anti-hooper. I was a comic book guy.
Oh, hey, I was a comic book. I was a comic book guy too. So what was like? Are you the only child? Are you the youngest of three? What's your sibling situation?
I'm the oldest of two. My brother's 3 years younger than I am. So it's just been us two. Not no girls in the family. So both of my parents are not DMV natives. They're both from South Carolina. So my upbringing was more Southern, even though I was in the city. So I was kind of brought up a little bit different than the people that originated from here. So, they because they were small town folks in a big city, I couldn't do a lot of stuff that everybody else could do because they was afraid for me. So I lived a very sheltered childhood because of that. Some good comes of that. Some, you don't really get to have the social life that you probably aspired to have, but they wanted to keep me safe. And of course, when the second child comes and they get to do everything.
Right. Right. There's no training wheels on the bike. There's no helmet. There's no guardrails. That's so what part of South Carolina?
So my mother is from a town called Hartsville, and it's close to Florence. and
Okay.
my dad is from a town called Bennettsville. Two small towns. I think Bennettsville is also maybe it's close to Florence too, but we don't get down. I don't get down there. That like my both of my parents are moved away, so like most of my family is down there. So we go down there every now and then when we can, because now we grown and we got things going on.
R-
We get down, or they come up this way. So yeah, but yeah, most of my family is in South Carolina. It's kind of weird. Like my dad's family moved up north. Most of them moved up north and left South Carolina, and my mom's family stayed there. So it's kind of split. But none of I won't say none, but just a few of them live in the DMV. They went like Philadelphia, New York. My dad's side and my mother's side, they all just stayed in South Carolina. My mom's the only one that left.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Wow. So you got that southern, so you got that southern upbringing, and you have, so that means that you smiled a lot and people probably thought you was weird because you
yeah,
spoke and said
absolutely,
hi to
absolutely.
everybody, and they're
Because I
just kind of
yeah,
looking at you like,
because I didn't adopt the DC Maryland kind of accent.
uh-huh.
And and I grew up because of the household I grew in. I didn't grow up loving like go-go music, like everybody. So they're like, "You don't like go-go, and you from?" I I was a hip hop guy. I was, everything else, hip hop, reggae, house music, but go-go. It went
Eh,
and they crucified me for it. They was like, "You, it's impossible that you don't love it." And I'm like, my parents were from South Carolina.
that's here's a question though. Here's a question. Since you was born in the South,
No,
and
I was
since
born
you
in
no, since you was
DC.
raised in the South, sorry, since you was raised in the South, right?
Uh-huh.
And you spent some time north of the Mason Dixon line, is it sugar or salt and pepper on your grits?
Uh, for me, it would be salt and pepper. I've never done sugar, not one time.
Really?
Yep, butter. I
Butter
don't
and
do.
salt and pepper.
Yep,
Okay, I dig it.
yep,
I dig
yep,
it. I'm
yep.
I'm I'm kind of a both kind of thing, kind of a both person now. So, what do you currently do as an occupation?
So I'm a software engineer at NASA in Maryland. It's called Goddard Space Flight Center. So I've been there for going on 24 years as a contractor, not direct government, but it's under the NASA umbrella. Um, and it's IT, right? So I deal with satellites that a lot of people think when you work for NASA that it's automatically related to space shuttle and like astronomy type of stuff, but they also do earth science. Like where I'm at is earth science, like land, sea, water, ice,
Uh-huh.
tracking those things. And so I monitor and retrieve data from satellites that look at earth science data, take pictures of earth science data. So I help process that data and then distribute it, archive it, and distribute it to people who subscribe to it. So like scientists, news stations, people that want the data, they want to do more projects and do more research. So we have the database and the archive that holds all that data. So
Okay. How'd you land in that space?
um wow, interesting story. I I knew I wanted to be in IT even when I was in high school. Um but I didn't know what it looked like. So I kind of accidentally I started out in engineering, like electrical engineering. And I ironically, when I graduated high school, I was in a program at Morgan State University in Baltimore called the NASA program.
Mm.
Right. I didn't even know that I would end up at NASA, but they gave me a partial scholarship and they accelerated all the classes and put all the people in the program in the same classes and we lived together and all of that. But that acceleration was too much for me being a sheltered child because the social part was what I was missing. So I was hungry for it when I got there. So you know that story. So
Yeah.
so I went there as electrical engineering and I did okay. I did great in math and science, but all the other classes that my brain was not really, I was the stuff that you would think might have been easier than like calculus and like physics. Those are my things, but you put me in a history class or ethics class, and I'm like, I'll get to it. So yeah, I excelled in the things that I knew that I loved, and so I eventually ended up getting a I'm gonna give you the cliff notes. I eventually ended up getting a job as internet tech support, and this was early internet, right? So
Hmm.
I'm in tech support it was like a hub of a bunch of different internet companies, and we were like, you would get the call and you would see who it was, and it'd be a different company. So I worked for that company, and what I realized was they wasn't paying me enough. We was a bunch of college kids, so I got the skills, and I moved back to DC because it was work here in
Hmm.
that field. So I started working. I started doing like I would go through a temp agency, and then I would go and so here every most of the stuff is government. So I went to Library of Congress. I worked there. Then I went to Department of Justice. I worked there and just kept building my skills. And then a friend of mine said, "Hey, we have space over here at NASA." And at the time, the contractor was Lockheed Martin, and I was like, "Cool." It was like $10,000 more than I was making. So back then, as a young guy, I was like, "I don't care what they have me doing over there. I'm going. I want the money." So I went, and the rest is history. I just stayed. I never left. At that point, I never left, and I just, the contractor life. For what I do, it comes up for recompete every 5 years, but I sit in the same seat, even though the companies may change, and
Hmm.
it's the same seat, but it's whoever wins. So the company that I'm with now has won, I think, the last 3 times. So I'm still sitting same, in the same spot. So that's pretty much the short version of how I landed into that position. And it came easy to me because my mom, although from South Carolina, she moved up here to work for the federal government. And what she did for the federal government was analyze retirement claims. She was tasked to find the errors, right? So imagine a woman who has that analytical brain, and she catches all the errors, the grammatical errors. And so whenever I had to do an English project, whenever I had to write something, the teacher would mark it up, and then she would say, "No, the teacher missed something. Go back and do it for me. Even if you already got the grade, you're gonna do it right here." And that spawned me to pay attention to a lot of detail as a habit, because she would not let you stop until it was right. And
Hmm.
so that skill set kind of landed me into kind of where I'm at now, where I still have to do similar things. Like, I'm very good at recognizing patterns, and looking at the things that most people can't see, the little details. That was something that I was taught to do from a grade school kid. So
Okay. That's yeah, that's an amazing skill to have to be able to assess. Do you play chess?
you know what? Interesting enough, I've never played chess a day in my
Mhm.
life,
You
but I
you would
always
you
wanted
would
to
make
learn.
a great chess player because of how you think.
Hmm.
So growing up, were you socially awkward?
Absolutely. The only place that I felt comfort was in the band class. Everywhere else, I played the instrument. So in there, I was king. But outside of there, I was a monk. How back in the '80s, being a smart, quote unquote, nerd was not cool.
For
so
sure.
so so I wasn't. But I had the interesting thing is I had friends that were like me, but I also the cool kids also was cool with me too. They just I wasn't hanging with them, but they knew who I was. And so anytime anybody tried to mess with me, they was like, "No, that's Derrick. He cool. Nah, that's Derrick. He's good." So I was able to kind of touch both sides. But I couldn't hang with them.
Right.
they just
Right.
knew
We
they
like you,
knew
but
who I
not
was.
enough to bring you on the inside.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Now, as you did, 4 years of high school being socially awkward, how did that how did that shape as you transitioned into college? You said you went to Morgan State. That's
Yeah,
a HBCU.
right.
Shout out to all the HBCUs out there. How did that, and being sheltered as a child,
Hmm.
and then transitioning into Morgan State, where one, you probably had mad crazy freedom. You probably was being exposed to things that was probably taboo for you. How
Yeah,
was And then being socially awkward. How
yeah.
did you fit in college?
So the short answer is it didn't translate, right? There was a lot of things missing. the irony in that NASA program that they put us in technically isolated us to a certain extent, even though we were on the campus. Remember, we were all paired with each other in the same dorm rooms. Our whole schedules were identical, so we wasn't in Gen Pop. we
Okay.
we all of our classes were the same with the same people, because the goal of the program was, if let's say an electrical engineer graduates in 5 years, they wanted to get us out in 4. They wanted to accelerate the process, which meant if you took one science in a semester, they put us in 2. Right? Most people would never
Mhm.
do that because you got the labs, and they was pushing us hard. So while you pushing us hard, I was around people like me in this program, and then I would piggyback off of their friends, which was kind of like them. And this is kind of the circles I ran in. But like all the other stuff that was going on, I went to the parties, but I wasn't socially in those, in the fray of most of the campus. And then I would go, because it was up the street, I would go home, on the weekends when I could, and hang out with my friends there. So yeah, that socially awkward, sheltered childhood, it didn't really translate well into the social growth that you think that would happen in a college. I kind of
Uh-huh.
stayed with my own, the people. And it's natural that humans do this, is you hang around people that are most like you. So if I'm a nerd, I'm hanging around nerds. I wasn't like we wasn't cross pollinating into the other stuff. We stayed with ourselves. The only time we really mingled really hard with everybody else was when there were parties.
Okay. Now in that, so I could see that how you move those pieces, and then being part of that cohort where y'all were just really isolated
Mhm.
you from everything else. You show up to the party, you still don't really fit
Right.
in because this is not your normal group of people that you hang with. So you're there,
Yeah.
but still feeling socially awkward,
Yep.
being present but not being present.
Exactly. Exactly.
Okay. So
Yeah.
so then how did that translate to you like when you transition out of college, now you have a pattern and a go to or thing, as in far as like how you've been socially awkward and you've learned how to adapt. How did that translate to you when you jumped out into the real world looking for a job or looking to date or anything like that?
So, okay, so interesting enough. So the job part was easy, right? Because I'm an engineer. I mean, so it's other nerds, right? So,
Right,
so
right.
that part wasn't, in most of the time when you're in a situation where you're around a lot of really intelligent IT people, a lot of them are also socially awkward, right? So interestingly enough, in dating, I was also awkward, and I was really like, I was built like JJ from Good Times back then. It wasn't all this, right? So I was skinny. I had a complex about that. I thought nobody would like me because I was so tiny, and I was a nerd at the same time. So and socially awkward. So all of those pieces together wasn't really sexy. The people wasn't really checking for me like that. So what happened was, when I did that internet tech support job, and this is part of my relationship story. When I did the relationship story, like dating, when I worked that internet tech support job, um, and this was probably like maybe like mid 90s, and people was just starting to get internet in their homes. And so because I worked the internet tech support job, my boss was like, I know a lot of you guys may not have internet at home, so you could stay here even when because it was a 24-hour shop. So you could stay and use the computer for whatever you want to use it for. And so I got addicted to chatting and doing instant messaging and dating sites and stuff, like even back then, I think it was Yahoo Personals. So what that did for a socially awkward person is I was able to lose some of the fear with the repetition.
Uh-huh.
Like I knew that some people wouldn't like me, but I had a smorgasbord of people to choose from. So that gave me a little bit of confidence, even in communication. Like I was in there at 3 a.m. and got off at 5. Like I was in there with like 7, 8 IM windows going at the same time. My word per minute typing speed went up because of that, because I had to keep up with all. I was in there, and so this was where you find out that people find you attractive because these aren't your circle now, and they're like, "Oh, I think you're cute," and I'm like, "Me? You think you like the skinny guy?" Yeah. And they was like, "Yeah, let's go out." So yeah, it that I built a lot of confidence in dating through that, and then of course you end up meeting people in person, and then you start to kind of get your chops, so that I probably would never. I won't say never. It probably would have taken me longer to build that confidence if I did not have that.
Okay. And in that, um, so I'm just kind of just throwing some things out here.
Hmm.
Um, now, like now you are a certified in emotional intelligence coach and a
Hmm.
certified relationship
Relationship
coach,
coach. Yes.
and um and you are NASA, and you so when people see Derrick Jones now, they see the shiny,
Hmm.
right? They see the well established, well put together, well polished man that is articulate, that's out here
Hmm.
doing his thing. But and you kind of shared a little bit of that as you walked. But what were some of your more difficult times, some of the more difficult things to process, just through just through like your high school and through some of your college? Because I know that like right now, the man that you are, a lot of that is forged from experience.
Hmm.
So they see what people see. They see you and the gumbo relationship and everything that you offer and all the services, but they
Hmm.
don't know the story behind that.
Right.
What's the trials and tribulations that you face in order to birth that out?
Okay. Cool. This is. I'm going to give you the Cliff Notes version. Okay. So this is going to include information that I learned in hindsight. So the puzzle matches. So growing up in a two-parent household, like we talked about, from two parents that were from South Carolina, um, it was very, what's the word I want to look for? Emotionally detached, but present, right? So like, no, I love you, no, not
Mhm.
hugging, stuff like this. It was they were present, they provided, they did the things, they showed up for the stuff. But these were the things that I was missing. So when I started to date, I aggressively pursued emotional attachment over vetting and qualifying people to see whether they aligned with what I wanted. I was very hungry for it, like obsessed with hunger. I didn't know this at the time, but this is how I chose, right? So imagine, remember I told you about me finding the internet, talking to people. I'm looking for connection, but not
Mhm.
necessarily a girlfriend. I just wanted to feel love. I wanted to feel attention. So everybody that said they wanted to see me got to see me, right? As expensive as it was, because the generation that we grew up in, we supposed to pay for the date. So every date that I went on, I had to pay for. So imagine not just meeting somebody at the store and getting a number, but being online and getting like 10 phone numbers in a week. And now you gotta, not that you're going out on dates with all of them, but let's say you go out with three of them, over now you got to pay for 3 days, and then and every day I'm at work, meeting more, meeting more, meeting more. So now I go to college. I was a late bloomer. I never had a girl, because awkward, right? No high school girlfriend. I probably didn't have my first girlfriend until I was like 20. But I'm still picking from the same space. This is going to make sense in a minute. It's a puzzle. I mean, engineer.
Mhm.
So I picked the first girlfriend without qualifying her. She cheats. I get hurt. I don't heal. I get the second one. She cheats. Because I'm this innocent guy. I'm just happy to be here. I'm going to do whatever you want me to do. No backbone. These whatever you want, baby. I'll do everything you want. And they was like, oh. And they went for the type A guy to cheat with because they wasn't getting fed that, right? This is hindsight, right? Number three, she cheats, right? So now I'm like, something is wrong with me, but I'm not going to work on it. I need to figure out with my analytical brain that I learned from my mama and my jobs, I have to figure out how to not be hurt again. So this is the origin of how I became great at processing human behavior, and it spawned from me not wanting to get hurt again.
Mm.
But I was obsessed with the why. Why are they hurting me? Why would someone potentially hurt me? Where would that come from? I don't want to get hurt the same way, so I need to look for these signs. But then I went even deeper and I started looking at the nonverbal communication, the body language. I looked at the typical communications, the sentence structures, and the word choices, and the man what they laugh at, and I'm cataloging all of this stuff in real time because I don't want to be hurt. And I kept doing it with every person I met to the point where it almost honed a skill where I can almost predict behavior because I didn't want to get hurt again.
Mhm.
Because I didn't take the time to heal, I then turned into something else because now I had a skill that I can use to manipulate. If I can create a character profile of you in one conversation, you would never see me coming because I've already had you pegged and you don't even realize you gave me it because I'm listening to you on the phone. Different people from different parts of the country, they kind of have similar language and so I'm cataloging all of this stuff, class, like where you've been, what type of restaurants you go to. Okay, so she's used to this level. And I used to do this almost instantaneously after a while because remember the internet. I could do this a lot to the point where I didn't even have to think at a certain point. So now you fast forward through all of this and what I term trauma picking because my childhood trauma was the emotional
Mhm.
attachment. I just wanted to be in a situation where I felt like I was cared about. And then once that one dried up, I had to keep replacing it. No healing taking place. So now you fast forward that year after year after year after year, it's a drug. You have to keep doing it in order for you to not feel that hurt, that pain anymore. So I did this for a long time, like years, over 5, right? And there were some relationships that popped in and out of that behavior. Of course, I'm still picking, wrong. So you deal with relationship hurt. You deal with sitting in that emotional space a lot because, I'm also an empath. So I'm feeling the pain and I'm dishing it out and I'm feeling it and I'm sitting in it. This is why I became an emotional intelligence coach because I sat in those spaces so long and it was so deep that when I talk to people, a lot of the reasons why they do the things comes from an emotional space because we sit in that hurt so long. And I was like, it would be disingenuous of me not to focus on that as a part of what I do, like more than the average coach would, because I understand those tears. I understand that dark place that you go to and we sit in it and we pick with it and we move throughout our lives and we don't really identify it. And I was like, I know if I sat in that so long, that it's got to be other people like me, right? So now I go through all of this process of trauma picking, and I realize, and what I always try to do is I try to illustrate, and I'm gonna do it here. I try to illustrate to people how this works, right? So you have this good guy that grew up with these Southern parents, right? So I use my fist, that's me. The trauma lays on top of me. So everywhere I go, this is what I'm manipulating you with. This is the mask that shows up because I'm going to be the thing that you're going to be attracted to because who wants this broken, nerd guy? So I'm going to become something that's going to be palatable to most people. And I'm walking around like this, but underneath this guy is under here like my mama didn't raise me like this. What am I doing? But I got to feed the trauma. So I'm walking around every time I
Mhm.
meet a person that feeds it, then it relieves a little bit of pressure. And then once they go, then I got to find somebody else to relieve it. And I did this for so long that it came to a point, and maybe it was divine intervention where that little guy that was on the inside was like, "You're not happy. What are you
Mm.
doing?" And that was the moment where I was like, "What am I doing?" And so I took accountability for myself and I said, "You have to stop." Because in order for me to get what I want, you're now creating potential trauma in other people. You're responsible for this, right? whether it was little trauma or big trauma, you met them with the purpose, whether you did it unconsciously or not, to use them to feed your need of that emotional attachment,
Mm,
right?
that's
So
good.
when I stopped and I detached from it, I started doing what I now teach as part of, how I have a course called how to start your healing journey. I went back through the relationships and I identified me and my part. And I went all the way back to figure out like what was the origin of why I picked these people. And it went all the way back to my childhood. That's why I say that once I learned it, I put it on the front of the story. I realized that I was looking for it, and then I went girlfriend one, girl. I was picking them all because of the same reason. All of the stuff, it was all from that. So I was like, now that I know where it comes from, I can't let that control me anymore. I have to now. So once I went back, I reconstructed every moment going back. Okay, not what did you do in a relationship? Who were you before you went into it? Were you even well adjusted enough to be? No, you wasn't. You went to the next one. Who was I? So I went through this process that I didn't know was a healing journey, but that's what it was. So when I came back, I was like, okay, I cannot move the same way anymore. Let me create some boundaries around what I'm doing. I know men a lot of times don't realize that we should have boundaries too. So I was telling women no when I used to say yes. No, you can't come to my house. No, you will not be staying over. No, I can't do. And they would be like, "What? Like, wow, what's wrong with you?" And I'm like, "I can't allow. I don't know you." And once I
Mm,
started thinking like this, I realized that my choices were better because now I'm discard. I have discernment now, and that opened up the space for me to be able to receive my now wife. Because if I had not done that, I would have hurt her too.
right,
Right. So
right.
we both were at a point where we were tired of quote unquote playing or doing whatever. And it just happened to work at the same time that we met each other because I really was a different person. That's what happens through healing is everything just looks different. Like you don't your type changes almost a little bit. Like you really start to look at things differently, and that opened up the path for her to meet me and to for me to meet her. It wasn't nothing's perfect, but the alignment was there. I was able to
Mhm,
recognize that she aligned with me versus me looking only for emotional attachment and everything else, was secondary. I had multiple things that needed to be checked off before we move forward. And so once I started moving like that, I was like, so now to get you to the coaching part, I'm still an engineer through all of this, right? And what I realized is part of my work journey was doing help desk work and getting the gratification out of helping people, teaching people how to do things. And that was kind of a part of my reward system. So I was like, I enjoy this, but I'm still an engineer. Like I don't like this isn't and we're still not at relationship coaching yet. This is just me loving to teach and seeing a light bulb go off. I was a little unconventional because I'm a visual learner, so I would talk to people in a way that they can take technical things and translate it into layman's terms so they can understand it. And so I was like, I'm really good at this, but I don't even know what this looks like. So I'm going through life, and then I start doing network marketing, right? Network marketing. I was an innovator in the training space because I would train in a way that was atypical of what they would dish out because it would be more of a visual, layman's terms kind of thing. And I would build these presentations and speak to them, and I would see the light bulbs go off. Be like, oh,
mhm,
I've been in, network marketing for 10 years and I've never really got it until I heard you say it. And I was like, my reward system's kicking off, right? So then I was like, going back to my normal life, doing everything else. But there was always that thing that was tapping me was like, there's still something that you're not doing. There's still something that you're not doing. And I was like, I don't know what you're talking about, but okay. And through my personal life, I would counsel or coach friends in their relationships because of all of the tragic stuff that I did. I learned because the analytical brain is still there. They were all like little mini case studies. So now I'm looking at human behavior, not just from the person that got hurt. I was a person that was doing the hurting. I was everything in between. Because I accelerated the process with the internet, I probably met more people to catalog more information. So whenever somebody would come to me and give me a problem, I'd be like, wait, I know what that is. Wait, no, move this way. No. And I would be able to see it quickly because I had that human behavior analysis thing in me, and I'll be like, they're moving this way because it is. Oh, I used to do that. I know exactly why he doing that. I know. So I would do this, and I would actually like turn people's relationships around, turn their dating around, and I was like, wait a minute. So then I became a life coach because I wanted to save the world. I wanted to. We could talk about whatever, and I'm gonna fix everything. And it becomes you can't fix everything for everybody all the time. It's a lot. So I was like, I need to find a niche because this is a lot. So I was like, what am I good at? What am I most knowledgeable? And I was like, relationships. I can do that in my sleep. And so this birth this business that I called Card Logic, right? So Card Logic was playing cards, visual learner, that I would create these little scenarios with the cards on the table, and it would mimic a relationship problem. It would mimic some other kind of life problem because with my brain, I'm like, okay, I had used to have two decks, a card that had a red back on it and a deck that had black. So now you have colors, you have numbers, you have the suits. So now you can say, you know, the bad people are the red and the good people are the black. And then and I would do this on live with the camera facing down on the on the cards and another
Uh-huh.
facing my face, and I had this whole thing. But what I realized was, in its genius, the flaw is it's a hard elevator pitch to explain this to somebody. So I would go out in the world and people were like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "Yeah, I got this thing." And they were like, "Well, what is it? Like, are you teaching people how to play poker? Like, what's up with it?" And it got frustrating to me. And then I started to look into the podcast space, right? So we at the tail end of this now. So I'm looking at the podcast space, right? And we talking about audio at the time. And I was like, I can't do this on audio. It's cards. But I want to be a podcaster. What do I have to transform into? And this is how Relationship Gumbo was born. So I took all the ingenuity of the cards and I created a platform that touches a lot of the same tones. And the gumbo part of it, I was like, I wanted to find something that incorporated a lot of different ingredients, like a human being would, right? A human being has a lot of different life experiences and ingredients, but when we meet people, we got to find the right gumbo. We got to figure out how my stuff and your stuff mix together, and it's gotta taste good. Sometimes it doesn't taste good. You got to change something, take something out, put it in. And I was like, I'm the chef. Let me help you figure it out. And that's how Relationship Gumbo was born. I started out, I want to say 2020 is where I started podcasting, and I ain't know what I was doing. so, so the bumps and the bruises of starting not just as a podcaster, but as an official coach, coaching people. I had to learn a lot of, how to interact with people, how to do this live streaming thing. And so once I started you learn more, you grow more every year, you get more confident. Now it's second fiddle to me now. And I've evolved over the years to morph into what I am today, which is I focus more on those emotional spaces that we talked about. And
Mhm.
but I also realized in reading the human behavior and the people that I was coaching that a lot of the relationship stuff that I was teaching wasn't sticking. They would get it. They might try it, they might not try it, but it wouldn't stick. So I was like, why isn't it sticking when these people are actually coming in? They want to help. Why isn't it sticking? And I realized that they're dealing with stuff that go deeper than how to go meet a better person. And so I was like, what do I have to train them on to help them understand that undercurrent, that
Mm.
subconscious thing? And so once I started looking at it and researching, and so now I'm like, they need to heal first. So I started calling my platform, I think last year, it's a healing first platform. We're not even going to do all the other stuff until we talk about healing. And then I was like, but there's still another deficit. You could tell somebody to heal, but nobody's teaching them how. So I was like, let me dig my heels in and figure out how to create something to tell them how to heal, because that's going to be the first question. You can throw them away and tell them they need to heal before they get all the other stuff. But it was hard for me to find that online. I was like, everybody's telling them to go heal first, and then they go home and they don't have anything. So I was like, I have to make this a part of my program. Matter of fact, this is my flagship thing now. We got to get here first. We got to deal with the abandonment trauma, the rejection, the trust, all of these things that we deal with from a kid. If you don't wrestle with that a little bit, you're going to keep picking the same people, just like I did, because
Right.
my wound was that emotional detachment. Everything I picked sprouted from that branch. You're going to always do it, and you won't even realize that's why you're doing it, because it's riding under in your subconscious. Your conscious mind is like, I picked a different person, but you're not realizing that you're picking both people, even though they're different from that emotional detachment space. So you're going to keep doing it, and you're going to
Mhm.
ask yourself, I don't understand why I keep picking. I don't, and you're going to drive yourself crazy, but you're still going to keep dating. So now you're going to keep rinsing and repeating until you, like, a lot of people now, they make the decision, I'm just never going to date again. I'm like, no, you haven't even sought out the why the tragedy happened, because we don't look at ourselves. We never really look at ourselves when we hurt. We like, whether they did this to me, I don't ever want to meet somebody else like them. And then you go out and you meet somebody that's the opposite of them, but you still didn't qualify them. All they
Right.
are is the opposite of the last. They're not even a fit for you. I've done that many times.
Man, that you said, you hit on some, you dropped some gems in through this whole piece. And first thing you said was trauma picking.
Hmm.
Man, man. Trauma picking. And
Yeah,
then you said trauma trauma feeding.
yeah.
Wow, like that, right? Those two right there, just looking in that space. And then you jump. I mean, I'm hearing this, in like, it's all coming in my head, and I'm just hearing all these things that are just dropping. But then you're talking about undercurrent. Most people have no idea what a undercurrent is
Yeah,
in general.
yeah.
If you say, "Hey, you know what an undercurrent is?" Most people are going to be like, "Nah, I don't know what that
Yeah.
is." So when you are engaging in people, or encountering people just off of just basic conversation, you've trained yourself to hear certain words or hear
Mhm.
behind what people are
Yep,
really saying.
yep, yep.
So you
It's
can hear when somebody's trauma picking,
mhm.
and
Very,
then,
very quickly. Yes.
yeah, and then you can hear when somebody is trauma feeding.
Yeah. It's what I always tell people is, when you speak, like on my lives, I always, sometimes I'll do like question Q&As or whatever. You can almost tell a person's character just by how they type their sentences and the words that they use. And most of the time, I will literally on live, I'll say, okay, we're going to use this as a lesson. Look what this person just typed. Pick this word out, pick that word out. There's trauma there. There's something else going on here. And once you're able to kind of decipher that, then you can kind of actually lead them to the place where they need to go. And most of the time, the reason why my platform is a little atypical of how a lot of coaches do is because it's born out of my training and testing and different things that the engineering work translates into human behavior sometimes. And so I'm looking at all of the complaints, right? I'm looking at I was with a narcissist for 10 years, or I can't get over this breakup. I keep picking the wrong people. I need to figure out how, I haven't dated in a long time and I'm scared. So I'm listening to all of this stuff and I'm helping them with this stuff, but I'm like, wait, again, it still goes back to healing. It still goes back to understanding who you are. It still goes back to understanding your childhood wounds. So no matter what, this is what I learned. Most people's gripes, their little today's pain, it all has to start back with you figuring out who you are. And once I realized that, I was like, let me create some classes, some workshops to help them do this. So I'm not trying to be, I'm only one person. Let me create a system that they can go through, because a lot of people don't like it when I do this. They'll start telling me all of this stuff, and I'm like, wait, have you ever healed from this stuff? No. Okay, so we're not going to talk about this. I know you want to. We're not talking about it until you take that course first, and then we can come back and regroup. But we're not gonna do all of this pain about you picking wrong. You're picking wrong for a reason. You're staying too long for a reason. You keep meeting narcissists for a reason and staying with them for 10 years. It's not the narcissist anymore. We got to figure out, and I use that loosely because the therapists always come for me. They're like, it's narcissistic traits. They're not diagnosed. I get it. This is just a catch-all term that everybody's using, but there's a reason why they feel like the narcissist is picking them, and then they're just helpless and I'm like, no, they're picking you for a reason, number one. And then once they pick you and you find out that it doesn't feel good, you still stay. So we're not even going to talk about the narcissist no more. We're going to talk about who you were before you met them, right? This sounds familiar because this is what I did in my journey. I had to figure out who I was before I met them, because once you get into the relationship, they're going to trigger you. Well, what are they triggering? Stuff from your past. So, so once I learned all of that, my whole platform changed. I was like, no, we're healing first. We're not even gonna talk. We're not doing that. you
That
gonna
it's
want to
like
do that?
it's
Yeah,
like the uncle that's locked up in the back room that nobody want to go. Is you know what I'm
yeah,
saying? Like
yeah.
we can't heal. And you said something else. The healing. Oh yeah, you said that you started to see yourself different,
Mhm.
and 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 when I heard that, I'm like, yeah, as I'm relating my story to your story and your journey, and I'm sure the people that's going to listen to this is kind of connecting their story to your journey. When you said that, I said, you know what? Yeah, I mean, you're no longer looking through the scars,
Yeah,
you're looking through the healing of it. So you see yourself in a different place, in a different position,
that's it.
and you're able to now assess, like, you know what? Okay, okay, because this is what healing looks like. So if I continue to look through this healing lens, then and
Yep,
keep doing the things that I need to do to heal,
yep.
then I will ultimately end up being better than where I was,
That's
even if it's
exactly
a,
it.
a little step. So man, that you said a lot of powerful stuff, and I think your platform is really amazing. And speaking of the platform, so hey y'all, yeah, yeah, I really want y'all to get on board with the stuff that he's doing and getting involved. So if you want to check out some of the things that he have, you can hit him on his website at relationship relationship gumbo.info, correct?
Right. Yes.
Yep. So you can hit him, and then you can hit him there. If you definitely want to go through and comb through his website, because he has some phenomenal, amazing information on here that is transforming and changing people's lives. And so really jump on if you are seeking to get healing and seeking to become a better you. Jump in his live on TikTok at relationship underscore gumbo. There's a wealth of information that he gives out in his lives, and the questions and content and the things that he's doing. So you want to go in and tap into that as well. And if y'all who are on IG, you can follow him on IG as well at the relationship underscore gumbo as well. So tap into the things that he's doing, tap into the work that he's doing, because his goal and what he's striving for is ultimately for you to be healed, whole, and healthy, so that then you could be in a whole and healthy relationship. But it
Absolutely.
all starts with you taking the time out to get healed. And I mean, like, man, this was some really rich content and really rich information that you put out. And I really appreciate you taking time out to pull up and hang out with me for a few minutes. I have one last question for you.
Uh-huh.
And this question, I just want to throw this question out there. What is something that you didn't pay attention to early on that you had to learn the hard way?
Anything or
Just in
in this
life,
context?
across the board.
Okay. Repeat the question one more time. What's something that I what? Say it again.
What is something that you didn't pay attention to early on
Mm-hmm.
and you had to learn it the hard way?
Um, I think I didn't pay attention to, I would say early on, I didn't pay attention to the fact that everybody wasn't a lot of people aren't nice. A lot of people aren't your friend. A lot of people don't have your best interests. And I kind of went into the world with rose-colored glasses because of how my childhood was. Especially in relationships, thinking, as long as I do right by them, they're gonna do right by me, and I didn't pay attention to what they call the red flags, and I just in life too, like just business and everything else, like you thinking that people that say they're gonna, have your back, they don't, and I had to learn to create boundaries around certain things and like look at things a little differently and don't allow people access to me, because I once again I let a lot of people in that should have never been there because of just who I was. So I've learned to like today, you don't just get access. I have to say no. No is a sentence. You know what I mean? Like
Right.
I have to tell people no to protect myself because so many people in my life took advantage of me hoping and assuming the best instead of making assessments of their behavior. So I would say that I guess that's my best way to answer it.
So to sum that up, you wish you would have paid attention more to the red flags
Yes.
and knowing that you're this nice guy and the world preys on folk
Yes. Absolutely.
who are just like, hey, well,
Yeah, because I also identify as an empath, right? So I attract a lot of other empaths, and
uh,
we love on people with no nothing, and we just go in and hope for the best and try to fix people, and that was me. And imagine being an empath and looking for emotional attachment. I dug in real deep with a lot of people unnecessarily. So yeah, it was a hard road for me to be able to tell myself to not walk forward in a situation where I knew I should have stopped, like stop. It doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel right. Like you had that voice has to kick in.
so real quick, because you said empath. A lot of people may not know what that term or what that is, and and a lot of people may identify as one. And
Right.
can you explain a little bit what that is? And somebody might be like, "Yo, that's me as well."
Yeah. So in short, empaths are people who not only can identify the emotions of other people, but we also a lot of times can feel other people's emotions. We adopt some of their emotions, and as a human being, to be able to pull in other people's emotions, it's good and it could be dangerous to you because some of us don't know how to release it, right? And a lot of empaths in relationships, they look to fix people. They look to love people without any reciprocity because they feel like they're doing a service to that person by giving them so much empathy and so much care that we typically don't see any red flags because we just want to love them through whatever the issue is instead of seeing that there's an actual issue. And
Mhm.
it's a day. So I literally did a whole workshop for empaths and introverts, right? The two things I said that I would. So because there's a lot of people out there like that. Like, how do you date as an empath? It's hard to not want to fix people that you see with a broken wing. You want to help everybody, but you can't. And a lot of people stay too long because you dig in so deep with your empathy that when it's time to leave, it's hard because you've given like 2,000% of yourself. You don't have enough
Right.
strength to leave.
Wow. That's really good. That's really, really, really good information right there. And the empath. So if you're an empath, you're probably way too deep into way too many relationships and
Yep.
probably drowning,
Yep.
and probably need to like he said he did with for himself to get healthy. create those healthy boundaries
Absolutely.
and develop this word that is a cuss word to some people called no.
Right. Right.
And
Right.
when you can
Yeah.
do that,
Most empaths don't have any boundaries. So it's hard, it's a tough life to live, to sit back and know that's how you lived your life. And now you have to create boundaries. And a lot of empaths think when you create boundaries that you're going to lose, this nurturing part of yourself. And I'm like, you don't have
mhm,
to lose it. Everybody just doesn't get access to it.
that's good. You just qualify the people now that are in your space
Yeah.
without having to go through the
Yeah.
hurt, the pain, and the disappointment and the frustration.
Yeah.
So that's some really good, man. Like you said some really good stuff, and this is filled with gems and a ton of information that people should be able to connect to. Again, y'all go follow my man on all his social media platforms. Y'all go engage on everything that he got going on, support things that he's doing. He is out in the community trying to change lives and make a difference. And you got anything else you want to say to the people before we bounce up out of here?
I just appreciate you having me here. I enjoyed myself, and we're gonna have to do something again, another way, another time, another however we need to do it. I appreciate you, and for the people, from a coaching perspective and just in life, be curious about the why. Be curious about why you do things so that you can grow into something even better once you figure it out and you understand how to progress from it. Be curious about the why, because whatever things in your life that are not going the way that you want to, and it's been like this for years, I always tell you that your results are your receipts. So if you need to know why you need to change, look at the results that you've had. Those are your receipts. It's your life. So all you got to do is think about where you've been. If you don't like it, change it. But first you have to identify that you have a pattern. That's
Woo!
it.
What a way to drop the bomb on the people with that. Your results or your receipts. But we could spin that and go for a whole nother hour on this thing, because that right there, that's a rabbit hole on that. But and you've been on Open for Discussion with my man Coach Derrick Jones and me, Seymour Reese Ball. We out. I love you like a play cousin. Peace.